Chapter 4. Tim woke up on Sunday afternoon, and the doctors, who late Saturday night and Sunday morning spoke with calm assurance, now looked so relieved that Alan suspected Tim had been in more danger than they were prepared to admit, perhaps even to themselves. The Riverbend Warriors were ecstatic when they heard the news at Tuesday's practice. While they were watching Tim's inert body being carried off the ice, the team hadn't seen injury equals concern. They'd seen severe injury equals dead. Now what was considered by adults a narrow escape was, for the boys, a joyous resurrection. "Look at all that energy," Milt said to Alan as they watched Gus Nanton supervise skating practice. "Lord only knows what a loss we'll have Saturday when those supercharged, rugged individualists all go tearing off in different directions. Another beating, probably," he concluded morosely. "I'm not so sure," replied Alan. "Perhaps we can give them a focus for that energy and beat someone ourselves." His thoughts slipped into silence as he watched the boys jubilantly skate with Coach Nanton. Skating practice over, the boys rested while Milt reviewed rules and traditions. Then Alan took up the subject of teamwork. "Last week Tim was hit. That happens. The good news is that Tim will be out of the hospital soon. The bad news is that he probably won't be allowed to play hockey again this year." Talk about raining on a parade. The boys had expected Tim to be back soon. "I think we owe Tim," Alan said slowly, and then let it hang. Whether it was reading all the teamwork books, his own experience, or intuition, Alan recognized that Tim's fall had also cracked the orderly world of each boy. Something had happened that shouldn't have happened, and all the Warriors were part of it. They needed to do something for Tim, something to make amends for what had taken place. "Any ideas?" Alan asked. Silence. Again Alan paused quietly for a minute. The boys shuffled their feet and looked anywhere except at one another or the coaches. They didn't have an answer. "I suggest we win the Division Cup for Tim," said Alan softly. The Division Cup. No Riverbend team had ever won the cup. None had even come close. The cup was awarded based on the last 10 games of the season, followed by a playoff by the top 4 teams. Early season losses wouldn't count against them. They had a chance if only they could get their act together. It was, Milt Gorman later reported to his wife, a cosmic goose of epic proportions. Feet froze, heads shot up. The Division Cup would be the perfect offering. The boys had watched countless hours of television and had seen enough Hollywood movies to know that this was exactly what teams did when a hero was wounded. Soldiers took the hill for their dying sergeant. Cowboys braved the blizzard to rescue the pet dog of the farm boy with the broken leg. And when a police officer was murdered, the FBI and state and city police banded together to solve the crime. They would be soldier, cowboy, policeman, hero. They would win the cup. Energy was restored and hit a new high. The only doubters in the arena were coaches Gorman and Nanton. Knowing the team, they ranked winning the cup right up there with the likelihood of being captured by aliens. Alan didn't rank chances any higher, but he was caught up in the energy of the boys. They had no doubts. They would be victorious. At that instant, commitment was total and unwavering. The only problem was that the Riverbend Warriors was still a group of supercharged, individual performers. The challenge would be to get them to understand that they could reach their goal only by working together. They would have to be willing to change their behavior. Willing, though, wasn't a tough enough word. Giving up old ways for new ones was going to be difficult. It would require powerful motivation. Alan took the team out onto the ice and began setting up and drilling 2 simple plays discovered in a library book. His mind, however, was focused on how he could get the boys' commitment level high enough to make retreat from their goal difficult if not impossible. He didn't think that when the going got tough, these toughs would get going. He figured they'd be gone, on to the next thing and blaming bad refs, bad ice, and bad coaching for their failure to win the cup. Too bad they aren't a little older, thought Alan. If they were, I could get them to do it for their girlfriends. Showing off for the girls had certainly motivated Alan. Then it hit him. It wasn't the showing off that was the real motivator. It was bragging about how good you were, in a low-key, cool sort of way, of course, and then having to deliver the goods or face the agony of failure in public. It was the commitment to others, a covenant that really motivated. These boys might not have girlfriends, but they had parents, coaches, teachers, one another, friends, and classmates. A covenant with all these people to perform would make it difficult to back out, on the one hand, and would be a great motivator on the other. Like bicycle riding, skating was something that, once learned, stuck. As Alan skated, he found that his blades slicing against the ice sang a long-forgotten rhythm. Kish boom, kish boom. Kish boom ba. Central high, central high. Rah, rah, rah. His old high school football cheer. That was it. They needed a cheer. Not one for cheerleaders, but one for the boys to chant to covenant with one another, and whoever else was listening. Can you take them for a couple of minutes? Gus, Alan asked as he skated to the bench. While Gus went out with the team, Alan picked up the coach's clipboard and turned to a clean sheet of paper. 5 minutes later, he had it. The cheer. Pumnim, catnim. This is our pledge to Tim. Chemo, Dara stamps. Riverbend will be the champs. Pumnim, catnim, Milt laughed. You write a cheer, Alan said. The point is, if the boys chant this at every practice and every game, at home and at school, they're on the line. They are that, agreed Milt. The boys loved it. It had a primal rhythm. They bellowed out, pum-nim, cat-nim, as if it made sense. Chemo, Dara, stamps, was chanted with hockey sticks drumming the ice in unison. From now on, the coaches decided, the Riverbend Elementary School Grade 5 boys hockey team would begin and end every practice and game with this cheer. And with every repetition, the boys renewed their covenant with parents, coaches, schoolmates, and one another. That night after he told Susan about the new cheer and their goal of winning the Division Cup, Alan said, I've got to get looking for a job. Wrong move, said Susan earnestly. You have a huge severance package and lots of time to find a new job. I haven't seen you so happy in years, Alan. I think you need time to recharge your energy, and hockey coaching is doing it. There are lots of jobs, but just one Division Cup. I say go for it. Not working, not moving quickly to take control of a situation and again be master of his own destiny, was heresy to Alan. But after only a brief hesitation, he agreed. Until Susan mentioned it, he hadn't realized how happy and excited he was. It had been a long time since he was this pumped up. By game time Saturday, Tim was out of the hospital. Energy was high as they stood at center ice calling out, Pum Nim, Cat Nim, this is our pledge to Tim, before the game. After being crushed in a 10-3 defeat by the clearly better organized West End Raiders, the best the boys could muster was a half-hearted recital of the cheer as they dejectedly made their way to the dressing room. The boys may have made a record-fast transition from enthusiasm to disillusionment, but Tim's absence, and the corner they'd painted themselves into for all to see with the cheer, bounced them back to a grim determination to succeed. By the time the team left the dressing room, the coaches had restored some positive energy by pointing out that no team had ever won the Division Cup with a perfect record. Before they headed upstairs to waiting parents, the walls reverberated with, Pum-nim, cat-nim. This is our pledge to Tim. Chemo, Dara stamps. Riverbend will be the champs. Driving home that night, Alan considered the differences between his team experiences with the Riverbend Warriors and at work. The Warriors had Tim. Winning for Tim offered inspiration. Winning the cup was a quest for the legendary Holy Grail, a reason to be successful. The cup, like the Holy Grail relic for crusading knights, would by its very possession bring salvation to those who had it. At work, Alan's team had been just a collection of people with no overarching common cause, at least not one that anybody on his team cared about, and certainly nothing to match the quest for the Holy Grail. In addition to their quest for the Holy Grail, the Warriors also had a covenant with one another, and with everyone else who had heard their cheer, to succeed. At work, Alan's team had had a few common goals, but they weren't their own goals. They were ones set by management. They might have been important to management, but they weren't of do-or-die importance to Alan. He also doubted that anyone else on his team cared that much, either. With the Riverhead Warriors, Alan may have proposed the Division Cup goal, but the boys had seized it as their own. As Alan parked in his garage, He paused before getting out of the car. There was something else about the Riverbend Warriors and teams and himself, but he couldn't put his finger on it. This vague sense of unease, of a puzzle needing a solution, stayed with him until the next evening when Milt Gorman called to suggest a plan for Thursday's practice. Gus Nanton liked it. "What do you think?" Milt asked Alan after outlining his plan. "I like it too," Alan said. "That's great," replied Milt. "If these boys are going to have a shot at the cup, we have our work cut out for us." Alan hung up the phone and stood a moment wondering about the call. Milt had never phoned before or even had a practice plan that Alan was aware of. His unease of the previous evening returned, the vague sense that he was missing something. While he was turning off the house lights before going to bed, the answer came to him. It was so obvious that when he discovered it, he actually said, "Aha," out loud, and his face burst into a smile. Alan was again part of a team. 2 teams, actually. The whole Riverbend Warrior team and more particularly the coaching team. Milt, Gus, and Alan were a team. They too had a holy grail, to teach these boys values, fair play, discipline, and teamwork, all skills they would need to survive and lead rewarding, exciting lives as contributors to their families, their community, and their country. Further, like the boys, the coaches had a covenant. They had written the chant and given it to the boys, thus placing the winning of the cup in the realm of the possible. Every time the boys chanted the cheer, the coaches covenant with the boys, the parents, and one another to prepare the boys to be winners was further etched in the hearts and minds of all who heard it. Like it or not, Alan was a team member again, only this time he didn't have the skills or knowledge to forge ahead on his own without Milt and Gus. Worse than that, they needed him. He had set this whole thing in motion, and without him he was sure it would die. Milt, Gus, and the boys would revert to their former comfortable roles. There was no acceptable or honorable way out. Alan was a team member. Alan spent another restless Tuesday night. He felt he was in over his head. For the first time in his life, he had let himself get into a situation where going it alone wasn't going to produce results no matter how hard he worked. In fact, Alan didn't have any idea of what to do next. On Wednesday morning, he shared his troubles with Susan. "I wish I could help you, Alan, but I know even less than you do about team building and how teams work," she said. "Too bad Miss Weatherby isn't still around. Weatherby's teams won more high school girls' basketball championships than anyone. She'd know what to do, but I think I heard she died 5 or 10 years ago. She was quite a lady and one fantastic coach." "She was," agreed Alan, remembering the tall, thin, steely-eyed English teacher who had had far more success coaching basketball teams than she had drilling Shakespeare into Alan. "Weatherby must have been near retirement when we graduated. I don't recall hearing that she died, but you may be right. She'd be at least 80 now."